We're so glad you made it. I'm Mitch the Monopolist, and this is Blue.
Wow.
Blue is just telling me about somebody he wants to play with. Do you want to help find who Blue wants to play with? Great! In order to find who Blue wants to play with, we're gonna need this. A clue. Once we find the clues, where should we put them?
A notebook.
Great! A notebook. Thank you, Mr. Drawer.
No problem, Mitch.
Are you ready to find our first clue? Great! Let's go. You're right, Blue. It's our first clue. What is it? You're right. It's a monopoly. What's a monopoly?
A monopoly is a firm that has exclusive control over a good or service in a particular market.
Wow. Thanks, Paprika. Nice of you to join us. Can you tell us more about this graph of a monopoly?
I sure can.
Great. I'll put it in our notebook.
This is the graph of a monopoly. The graph of a monopoly has four curves. First, there's the marginal cost curve. This displays the increase in total cost that rises from an extra unit of production. Marginal cost is upward sloping because of diminishing marginal product, which basically means that with each additional input, you're getting less output. Next, you have the average total cost curve. This shows the total cost divided by the quantity of output, or basically the cost per unit. Next, we have the demand curve. This shows how much a buyer is willing to pay for the good or service at any given quantity. Next, we have the marginal revenue curve. This shows the change in total revenue from each additional unit sold.
Wow.
That's all good, but Blue wants to know what this can all tell us about how monopolies work.
Well, the left axis shows the costs and revenue of the monopoly, and the bottom axis shows the quantity of the monopoly. Now, monopolies are price setters, meaning they get to set the market price of their good or service. Monopolies are going to produce until the amount they're earning from each additional output, or the marginal revenue, is equal to the amount that each additional unit costs, which is the marginal cost. So at the intersection of marginal cost and marginal revenue, we can find the amount that the monopoly is going to produce at, which is the profit maximizing quantity. Now, they're not going to sell it at that amount of money though. They're going to sell it for whatever the buyers are willing to pay for it, which is shown by the demand curve. So if we take the price that they're selling at, which is at the demand curve, and subtract the average total cost, we get the per unit price, meaning that the rectangle from the demand curve down to average total cost multiplied by the quantity gives us the monopoly's profit.
Oh, look. We found our second clue.
Wow.
Who are you?
I'm John D. Rockefeller, famous oil monopolist.
Well, hey, John. How did you utilize monopolies in the oil industry?
When I first started out in the oil industry, I struck a deal with railroads, which cut my shipping costs immensely. I then struck fear into my competitors within Ohio, assuring them that they couldn't beat my prices, so they all were forced to sell their oil refineries to my company, Standard Oil. With my 20 new oil refineries, I now control 25% of the oil industry.
Wow. So how else did you drive your competitors out of business?
As my bank account began to rise, I began acquiring new oil pipeline networks. I used these networks to cut off the flow of crude oil to their refineries that I wanted to buy. Then they tried to fight back by building their own pipelines, and I would just buy the land that they wanted to build on. They had no choice but to sell their companies.
Wow. That's interesting. So how do you feel about the antitrust movement?
You know, I don't know if you want to get me started on that. There's no good money suckers when to take my money that I worked for. If those lazy ass people got off their couch and actually worked and made a living for themselves, they wouldn't have to come after my money. The worst part about it is that Satan of a man, Teddy, was listening to these hooligans and was a huge proponent in the movement. That son of a should go himself.
Wow, those are some strong words. What do you think, Blue?
Row, row.
I agree. Hey, look. It's our third clue.
Row.
It's on a Monopoly box. Who are you?
I'm Teddy Roosevelt, former president and trust buster of the United States.
Row, row.
You're right, Blue. That is a big stick. Well, anyway, what makes a monopoly different from other firms?
A monopoly is a firm that has complete control over the supply or good of service. Most other firms compete with each other in order to sell the same product or a very similar one. This competition causes firms to sell at the market price, which is where aggregate supply meets aggregate demand. This means that it's affordable for both the consumer and the producer. Monopolies don't have to follow those same rules. Their pricing point is where it's most profitable for them.
So, how do you feel about monopolies? And what are their effects on society?
Monopolies can have different types of effects on society. They can have both positive and negative. There are some monopolies that have control of the supply. However, they act reasonably and they price their products affordably. I think these monopolies are good for the economy and the welfare of society, and they should continue to exist. There are other monopolies called natural monopolies. These monopolies have high fixed costs to start up their business, but they make it up over time with profits. They're the only one in the industry, so they can have the only profits, so we have to regulate them. We can't let them get out of control with the supply of whatever good or service they have, but they also are very needed in the economy. These things occur as like electricity and other energy fields where big power plants have to be built. These industries are important to have in a healthy economy, and natural monopolies are the most efficient way of operating. There are some monopolies that can be harmful by exploiting customers and raising rates to fatten their pockets. Some examples of these are Andrew Carnegie's U.S. Steel, John Rockefeller's Standard Oil, and J.P. Morgan's Northern Securities, which I sent to the Supreme Court to be broken up because they cannot continue to get richer while other normal people struggle.
Well, now that we have our 3 clues, what do we do?
Sit down in a thinking chair and think.
Alright, so our first clue was the graph. Next, we ran into John D. Rockefeller. And finally, we had the Monopoly board game. So who do you think Blue wants to play with? Is it Joseph Porco Morgan? No. So who is it? It's the Monopoly Man!
Row, row, row.
Time to go play, Blue.
Well, it looks like they're gonna have a fun time. Thanks for your help. See you later.